Walk you through the muddiest parts. We kind of forget soil is actually a living thing. There's all kinds of stuff going on down there. Soils have names. Brookston are your true wetland soils. So you get these really wet pockets, and then the rest of the soils in through here are Crosby. They're wet, but they're not the true wetland clay soils. Here's an example where we have our water, our open water, fades into the edge planting, the emergent plants. So we go a little further along, there's this definite band of the little bit drier, the sedge meadow type stuff. And then you go a little further and you can see wet prairie areas. If you have one that is close to a river or a stream, they're holding water out of those streams and rivers. Call them nature sponges. They hold an incredible amount of water and then either slowly release it into the streams and rivers or into the groundwater. Plus, native plants in a wetland are excellent filters for taking pollutants out of contaminated water. I don't know, I think wetlands are really cool. Most of them are not open. We have to work to keep them open. Invasive species can so rapidly overtake an area that those are things you want to get in and maintain as soon as possible. We've been hand pulling an invasive called sweet clover out here for years. In '04, when I first started, we were pulling bags full of it. The sweet clover is a non-native invasive plant, and it would basically just end up crowding out the other native stuff over time if you let it go.
One of our main goals is to maintain or enhance the plant community quality and keeping it diverse and full of native species that are connected to wildlife. So what we're trying to do is get in and look at the invasions that we can make a big difference on in a season. Because we're dealing with plants and phenology, we need to program our actions at the specific times of year to control those plants effectively.
I will visit an area and inventory all the plant species that grow there. And I'll also specifically inventory all the invasive plants. And I will use a GPS unit to locate these plants so I can take them back and map them on a GIS program.
So this is what the broad level mapping looks like. We have all different invasive species that are mapped, so we can send crews out to go target very specific areas in the park and look for certain species.
It's extremely important that you strategize and plan with good data in the off season, and you come in here and you have good priorities, and that allows us to go back in the next year, evaluate, but you're constantly learning from one year to the next. You're constantly getting out and monitoring the sites and seeing what's worked and what hasn't, and changing your game plan as needed. We've really destroyed about 90% or more of our wetlands in Indiana. It happened and most people haven't noticed and aren't aware. And it's the same with invasive plants. Eventually they hit a critical mass and everybody wakes up and says, wow, this is a lot. But they've gotten used to it because it happened over a slow period of time. Most of the land that was drained was for agriculture. They basically needed to put tiles in the ground so that the big storm surges flushed off straight into the rivers. So we basically altered the hydrology as an advantage to being able to grow row crops, cash crops. You know, it's like a lot of things with nature, we just took it too far.
Well, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
How are you doing today?
Good.
This is a special week this week. This is National Pollinator Week. Bees, butterflies, moths, these important pollinators are really in trouble right now. Some of their populations have declined as much as 90%. And so what we can do to help them is put in native plants. And that's what you're going to help with today. All right, so let's go ahead and get started.
Oh, this one's got bugs on the bottom.
This is a really beautiful wildflower. It likes wetlands. And then this is a fox sedge. So this is not a wildflower, but it is a sedge. So it looks a little bit like a grass, and it still provides good habitat for beneficial insects.
We've had a lot of ash die off here, so if you look up in the canopy, you'll see the dead standing trees, and those were affected by the emerald ash borer. So you can imagine how the increased sunlight as a result of the opening in the canopy might change the forest composition in the understory. One of our concerns is that that will be more favorable for invasive species to show up and then spread where they're getting more sunlight. So that's why we are trying to plant back in this area so we can get some canopy in the future at this park. It'll take a long time for the trees that we're planting to actually grow to this size, but I'd say within 30 years or so, we'll start to notice more shade just from these trees here. Our blood, sweat, and tears definitely go into this work, so it's a little soul manure here for these trees to thrive.
If you can visualize all this area we're walking into, it's heavily treed now, but it used to be open field. That was in '93. That's when I started. Let's put it that way. So this is the old section of boardwalk. We're extending this about 1,700 feet that direction to the parking lot. It's a means of access for one thing. We want folks to have a pleasurable, safe experience. A boardwalk allows that. It's not a big, wide boardwalk. It's only 3 boards wide, but that allows for more of a passive use. And it's not really a running trail. It's not a biking trail or anything like that. It's for people coming along that's got cameras, maybe small children, binoculars.
There's long been a trail here, but most of the year it's been too wet to traverse. From about November till June, it's usually underwater. But the water's never very deep, so just elevating this boardwalk a few inches above the surface is going to go a long way to making this a more popular trail.
Accessibility is critical because what we're trying to do is get people turned on to all the benefits of nature. And part of it's getting the kids out here and to learn about nature. They're going to be our next stewards of our planet. So anything we can do to get them inspired, get them focused and educated, but also to build a bigger coalition of people who care about these issues. People are kind of yearning for these experiences. You know, we're all stuck in our daily lives, in many cases that's urban, and once people get out to these places, they really kind of awaken and be like, they feel different.
You spend time in a natural area, it lowers your blood pressure, your cortisol levels, improves your memory, your ability to concentrate. Even taking a walk on a tree-lined street helps, but spending like at least half an hour in a natural area like this.
Parks, in a huge way, are green infrastructure. They help manage stormwater on site. It allows stormwater to soak into the ground, and that prevents runoff in the developed landscape. When we have healthy ecosystems, that improves the water quality as well. So it limits erosion, it stops sediment from entering our waterways, as well as other pollutants.
I usually try to talk to people about what matters to them in their life, and there's a way to connect that to wetlands. Most of us want to leave this place in condition that our children and grandchildren can have a healthy planet, and so I think sometimes talking to people in that way is a better way to connect why wetlands matter to an everyday person.
Every person you can train on invasives, what the various invasives look like, how to take care of them. That's one more person spreading the word to they're going home, they're talking to their neighbor, teacher at school, kids' friends. Anytime you can do that, it's a good thing.